What's up, everybody? I promise you it is not winter when I'm filming this. It looks like I'm dressed for winter, but it's not. It's almost summer. And when it's almost summer, kids want to look good. So we are talking Sit Still Kids Salon coming up next. All right, Amy, first we start with your story. How did you accidentally fall into franchising?
Oh, accidentally, keyword, like everybody else, right? I found myself working alongside the founders of Bar 3, which is a boutique exercise studio concept that was born in Portland, Oregon. I was a client, I became an instructor, and the founders approached me and said, "Hey, we're thinking of franchising this. You just moved here from New York. You kind of seem like you know what's up. What do you think about that?" To which I responded something along the lines of, "Don't do that. That's what McDonald's does. Gross. You're too cool. You're too cool to franchise." And they indulged that, but explained to me that what they loved about franchising was the idea of empowering other people to be able to take the Bar 3 blueprint and bring it to their communities. It was less capital intensive on them. And as people who are not real micromanagers, which I came to learn after working with them for 10 years, it really suited them. So they handed me the keys. They said, "Help us figure it out." And, baptism by fire, building the plane while flying it, all those descriptors, those metaphors played very true in the decade that I worked right alongside them and took Bar 3 from a single location in Portland, Oregon to about 160 by the time I left. I opened my own franchise in New York City, which is where I had spent my 20s. It was a real bucket list thing to open a business in the West Village, and just a total wild ride. And really came to appreciate what franchising was all about through my experience with Bar 3, which really approached franchising in what I've come to learn is sort of a contrarian way. This was not about hiring brokers and listservs and finding a traditional franchisee. It was about connecting with people who really aligned with the values
Right.
that Bar 3 was really bullish about and really led with. And that I could really get behind. I loved that. And here I am doing something completely different in 2024, but it was the franchise MBA that I got on Bar 3's watch that has positioned me to, grow other businesses.
So now you're at a new one. Much
Yeah.
different.
That's so new to me. It's been since 2018, so we've been at it 6 years.
Yeah. Give me the lay of the land there, and I'm gonna go back and unpack some questions. But what's the status of the brand? How many units? Where are you at now?
Yeah, so Sit Still Kids Salon, also a Portland-based franchise. We have been actively franchising for about 5 years. You can do the math. A lot of those were COVID years, so I always like to kind of factor that into where we're at. But we're 20 locations open. We have another 28 in the works. We are like Bar 3, selling to people who have come to us very organically, which is the way I like it. And I think really the strongest way to grow a brand and culture is through, people who resonate at a really deep level with what you're about and not just opening a business to open a business. Maybe more on that later. But yeah, so, we've got a flag in the ground in almost every corner of the country. We are selling multi-unit deals to people. So most of our owners have committed to 3 locations, if not more. And, we have a handful of owners who have opened their second or working on their third, but the majority of our locations have been open about a year.
That's great. Yeah. So you've been through these 2 scenarios, and this is a question, wherever you want to take it, I'm good with.
Okay.
I think back through, obviously you're at 2 growth brands that can grow. There are plenty of brands that stall out early and can't really pick up their growth engine, but you're at 2 that are doing well. What has disappointed you most about franchising, where you're like, I wish this would have happened along the way, whether that was when you're first learning what franchising is or it's in current stages. Like, I wish people would just talk to us before they buy another brand. Like, what are the disappointments from where you sit?
Um, I don't know if disappointment is the right word. It was a steep learning curve for me in the early days. Working for an organization that had really no franchising experience and leading the development charge. I remember seeing my name in Bar3's first FDD and like freaking out. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like just the whole legalese of it all. And I back then could have really benefited from, I think, a little bit more handholding on the legal side of what franchising is all about. I think for young brands who are led by impassioned founders and entrepreneurs who just don't have franchising experience, but have chosen that as the vehicle for growth, there could be an opportunity for like legal coaching with young brands. I'm like off the cuff right now, but I do feel like, and I have a very good relationship with Sit Still's legal counsel. It took, I've recycled through a lot of attorneys in the 15 years that I've been in franchising. And I think it's a big unknown. And I think when you have, people that don't, have the law degree, it can be really daunting. And then how that translates to the conversations you're having with your franchisees and just that whole kind of governing body that is the FDD and the relationships that you are legally actualizing in these lifestyle brands with not really savvy business owners on either side in the beginning. I think, that for me, whether it was a challenge or frustration, I think I can easily look in the rearview mirror and be like, whoa, I was flying pretty close to the sun there for the first couple of years.
Well, it's interesting. So this will lead to a statement that I'm going to make. I think you very clearly, culture is important to you. You talked about organic growth and building up this culture of franchisees. So I'm going to put this over here. I was with a franchisor 2 days ago. Great business opportunity. But we were talking about almost the two-face approach of a franchisee. Like, candidate comes in, they're at discovery day, they're all bought in. You're like, you're going to follow the system. They're like, yeah, we're going to follow the system. And they're like 24 hours later, they're like, I'm not doing that. And it's like, they were addressing the toughest part about how obviously legal and culture start merging together. And then you go up to this other like direction of the shape of franchising, and we're messing with people's life savings. So it's like, how can you also have empathy in this moment that says it's scary to be in franchising? We're trying to protect our culture, but they are making a big leap in their career and their lives to get to this point. And so it's fascinating, like hearing you talk about it and then saying what is disappointment. You're talking about legal structure. It's like, unfortunately, in franchising, business hits personal, and that probably creates a little bit of turbulence on how you navigate working with franchisees,
100%. And I mean, I hear you say that, and it's like, yeah, there's like two truths in that, the reality, the art and the science. I always talk about the art and the science of franchising, the culture, the brand. Those are the things that get me going, are like cool brands that are disrupting the status quo. I could talk about it all day long. I can sell it all day long. And then the science is the infrastructure that happens to be, quite legally heavy, needs to be by design. And, where I feel really just way more confident and grateful that I now have, 200 franchisees on my resume, that you really lead with all the truths. You lead with the fact that all the risks, and that's actually part of how you sell somebody in, is through ruthless transparency. I'm
Yeah.
really big on that. Just getting in front of what you just described with the franchisor that you met with, who was like, they're saying yes all throughout their diligence. They sign and they're like, oh, and by the way, I have no intention of following the playbook.
Yeah.
There's something flawed there. And
Yeah.
I
I
really want
think
to.
I think for a lot of franchisors, and obviously you have a governor of 15 years of experience of trying to read through or cut through the bullshit when it comes to whether this person is really bought in or not. But there's two things that I think have changed, and I'm not sure the dust has settled. One is the multi-unit agreement, because when you agree as a franchisor to award multiple locations in a market, and you're saying I'm buying into you before that operator has even proven to you that they have the chops, it creates another level of risk, because you hear it all the time that these agreements never come to fruition at many brands, because like you're betting on the jockey before you know whether the jockey can ride the horse. And it's interesting to think through that. And then I'm with you on the full transparency side. I think franchising, the ugly side of franchising is the fact that we talk about disclosures and we talk about transparency, but then we live in a world where a franchise broker who may not have the highest integrity sells based on who pays them the most, not on what brand could have the greatest and best impact for a franchisee. And so now it's hard, because the benefit is, I think, in both of your scenarios, and you could see it on both websites if you went to it now. There's a brand, there's branding, there's brand, there's a voice, there's a culture behind these businesses. So you're selling on passion before you're most likely selling on how much does it cost to get in and how much can I make. Majority of brands sell on how much does it cost and how much I can make. And then multi-unit agreements and brokers eliminate the transparency and then eliminate the potential for what is possible. So, I mean, I love where these discussions go, because obviously not planned on what we're talking about, but I think you're almost blessed in falling into franchising to a brand that was culture, that was like, I don't even know if we want to franchise. You're like, I don't think you should franchise.
Yeah.
And now you're able to rely back on that for how you make decisions now.
100%. I mean, I think kind of learning, really kind of building our own playbook around franchising at Bar3 had so many benefits, and also then some real pain points too, because, within franchising is nothing if not, rules, regulations, templates, blueprints, all of that, and sort of trying to create some fluidity and freedom within that infrastructure. It takes some elegance and sophistication that over the years I think we achieved quite well at Bar3. And Sit Still, we've been able to sort of take what we loved about that approach and apply it to, it Sit Still, I would say, while all of our owners, have passion around, I think, being a small business owner and bringing something of service to their community. Our owners don't cut hair. They're not as tied to the direct experience as a boutique fitness brand, where oftentimes the franchisee is teaching classes like that. There's just some interesting learnings from sort of both experiences for sure. But yeah, to your point, both at Bar3 and Sit Still, just based on the strength of the brand, the culture, the core values, the way we have chosen to grow within franchising. I mean, transparently speaking, doesn't leave a lot of room for like the broker network or, going at that traditional route. For all the reasons you just said, it starts to feel quite incongruous with
Mhm.
the DNA of what we're all about. And, albeit maybe we're growing slower, more methodical, like whatever, but it's kids' hair. It grows, it needs to be cut, rinse, repeat. It's not a trend based endeavor. So I don't feel a real like rush to hit the gas pedal and, do some of the traditional things um, that we could do to, get to 100 fast.
Well, it's interesting. If I look back at the best business case studies that we've worked with, they've grown not by definition or by critique of the industry slow, but they
Right.
actually grew right. And so if I take a brand, and I've done this exercise before, I'm like, okay, you want to break 100 units, fantastic. Well, you get to 1, and then in year 2 you have 2, in year 3 you have 4, in year 4 you have 8, year 5 you have 16, year 6 you have 32, year 7 64, year 8 you've broken 100. And they're like, that's too slow. And then I talked to the brand 10 years later. I was like, how many units you got? They're like, we got 22. It's like, but it's like, it's so hard because I think the pressures of if you're not growing, you're dying, which is a false statement.
Totally.
Trips people up. Do you talk about becoming a business owner? Do you identify more as a franchisee or as a franchisor? Like
Yeah.
what is your business identity?
Oh, maybe a little confusing, a little complex. No, I am a franchisee. I actually have invested in franchise concepts in addition to my primary role as a franchisor, co-founder of Sit Still Kids. But yeah, I've been on both sides, which has served me really well on the other side. But I absolutely identify as a franchisor and somebody within the franchisor environment. I've always felt really at home at like the front end of the engine. I can sort of identify where the culture is going and how this brand can be a part of pushing that culture forward in a way that then sort of serves operations and everything that comes after actually selling a location to somebody. So I love working in the future. Like that is where I'm best suited. I'm not a details person living in the day-to-day of a single unit. I'd be terrible at. I like looking like on the business, not necessarily working in the business. And even within the structure at Sit Still at the franchisor level, I have business partners who truly live in the day-to-day. They are in the trenches with our owners. They are simultaneously opening locations and continuing to grow our existing owners in their businesses. And they're really good at that. I'd be terrible at that. I like telling the story, getting people excited and bringing them into what we have going on. So that takes a ton of confidence in who else is around the table with you. I've been just super fortunate to work with great people.
Well, I keep saying to, again, when I'm advising brands on what do they want to accomplish from a growth standpoint. I mean, we do this quite often where we go in and there's some magic number that's there. I say, well, let's first understand what winning is. What's the dream? Mm-hmm. If the dream is to grow and exit through private equity, which is a totally fair dream, then you're going to go sell franchises. If your dream is to do this the right way, build this up, and then obviously you'll exit at some point, but you're going to exit at a pace that isn't stressful, then you develop franchises. And I think when you've walked a day in the life of a franchisee, your ability to develop a franchisee or develop the franchise is greater because you know what you have some sense of what a bad day is. You've been on the airplane before,
of the reality. Yeah. And all the businesses I've touched in some way are really defined as owner operated. The level of involvement from, the most involved would be a bar 3, where you open your doors, you're teaching 25 classes a week, you are training other instructors. I mean, it is so full on. To, sit still, which even though our owners aren't providing the services, really does require a significant amount of involvement, especially in the beginning, like all businesses, that really understanding that experience for these owners, like, it's crucial to continue to grow. They need to validate you. I can say whatever I want to a prospect, but proof is in the pudding. And um, shaping our operations around the reality of what it takes to run a successful business, single unit. Like, I couldn't imagine building a program any other way, but I hear what you're saying, which is hit the gas pedal and sort of not run out the clock, but create such a huge coming soon portion of your website that it's hard not to look at you. But really, like, there's finite amount of resources and support on the franchisor level. That to me points to we're really looking at selling and exclusively selling, and just sort of like hoping these units do what we need them to do.
Yeah, I think the responsibility of franchisors, well, government wise, the government manages franchising through FDD and somewhat employee relations. In my opinion, governance, and whether that's government or it's just a collective agreeing that there's a certain way we have to support these franchisees because they're not entrepreneurs. They've bought a business in a box, and can we give them the tools to win and accomplish what they want, which is ultimately create wealth or time for availability for their family. And every franchisor talks about depth of support, like best support in the business. Very few actually really champion the franchisee. And to the franchisee, they don't know which way up and down is when it comes to buying a business. Like, if you and I go back to before we were in franchising, we don't know what it is, and we're expecting them to know what it is. And that's where, like, my hope is that franchisees continue to take their time making the right decision, evaluate the franchisor the same way the franchisor should evaluate you, and make sure that when you're buying into a business and investing the money that you've worked hard to save up, that you're planning it with someone that you really believe is going to have your back in this process of hopefully becoming a great franchisee,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always understanding, I think one of our, something we're focused on really at Sit Still is like, at what point do you sort of hit, enablement with your franchisees of like them relying too much on you as a resource, and how do you really teach them to fish? And that's something that we learned at Bar 3. It really was kind of a core value, this like love of learning how, and even how that applied to an owner, of like, every resource you need is available to you, but it's up to you to find that resource and execute on it. That's a word I bring up a lot in conversations with potential franchisees, is execution. Like, it's all there. We'll hold your hand in the beginning. That's what we've signed up to do, but your job is to execute.
Yeah.
And to continue to identify areas of your business that you can grow. We're there to support, but and just kind of, understanding what that line is of, not doing the work for them. That's not what franchising is all about.
What's the secret to your brand? What else do you want to know? What else do you want a candidate to know about the business?
We are really bullish about being the premium children's hair salon concept in this country. There are very few players in the kids category. And you could speculate kind of reasons why that is. Shocked me when I first started to look at this space 6-7 years ago, that, for the amount of children under the age of 10, 12 in this country, that there were so few franchises geared towards cutting kids' hair. And so the opportunity to build not only another player in the space, but a player with such distinction around a premium experience that is designed for the entire family, not just a child. When you look at our category, the biggest brands with the biggest shareholders are really designed for children. Mm-hmm. Primary colors, balloons, cartoons. I'm painting a picture here. We intentionally have created a salon for children that is somewhere that parents want to be as well. So we're much more minimalistic in our design and aesthetic. We don't really look like a kids salon per se. Mm-hmm. Our appointment times are longer. Our service menu is more reflective of an adult salon. We've taken the time, we've put the resources into creating a more robust experience that we recruit, train, and develop on at the local level. So you will never compete on price. We really stand behind being a premium brand that is priced accordingly and have full faith and confidence that there are enough parents out there who are happy to pay more to come and have an experience that's reflective of their own values as a parent who might be taking some photos and putting it on Instagram, or maybe sees her favorite shampoo that she had no idea we sold because it's hard to source, or the perfect birthday gift. All the surprise and delight that we've incorporated, we're betting on.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, I mean, as an outsider, what I'll say is, from the thing that I love most about your business is the way that you've engineered the brand. So obviously I haven't experienced it as a customer.
Not
yet.
Right,
not yet. But I think one of the errors that businesses make is they conform design to the wrong customer. For a child, they want to see the little things. They care about what they're getting their hair cut in, so they have a good experience, and then obviously the behavior of the person that cuts their hair. Right. But ultimately, your customer is not the child. Your first customer is the parent. And then to your staff, if I walk into a place that is full of junky toys and junky experience, my enthusiasm deteriorates too. And so I think I've said this as it relates back to senior care franchising quite often. Mm-hmm. All senior care brands put seniors on their website. I said, that's not your customer. Your customer is the adult who is uncomfortable with the fact that they have an aging parent. And so I think you're nailing that in a way that other people don't think of it that
very
way.
Synonymous.
So, yeah.
Very, very synonymous. That's right. A child's not booking their own appointment.
Right.
Mom gets to pick. And it's not lost on us that, those details. We have custom made car chairs, race cars that kids sit in. They love them. We're not above iPads, but, we have noise canceling headphones. We've just taken everything to the next degree. It's all about the details. It's very thoughtful. And that's exactly right. A child doesn't know what they don't know. Kids love our competitors. Why would they not? Balloons and cartoons and sitting in a fire engine. There's a lot to love there. Yeah. It's a 7-minute haircut, and you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So we've just, to use your word, engineered an experience unlike anything else. And we hear it time and time again. From our clients, from our stylists. We are a arguably more enjoyable place to work. You can imagine our service prices are higher, so tips are higher. They're commissioned on product. We sell a ton of product. We are a retail service hybrid. So the retail square footage within our salon is pretty significant, comparatively speaking. And that all just rounds out this experience that makes us really unique.
So I'm going to close with my one piece of advice.
Okay, I'm ready.
Do the same for the franchisee. And I think I've walked into so many franchisors' offices, and they have the one I was in this week. They had a beautiful journey of what happened to their customer, a child. I said, you have two businesses here. You have one for the franchisee too. And so when I land on a development website, all you say, you just say, become a franchise owner. But that's not the magic. Some of the magic is in this conversation that we had, that brands don't sell brands, people do. And if you take that same engineering over to franchising, you'll be pleasantly surprised with what the outcome is. So, but I love what you guys are doing. I think you're off to a tremendous start, and I can see it. You've put the details in the brand, and I think that ultimately helps you and will help you on consumer and franchisee acquisition down the line.
Well, thank you, Nick. I so appreciate it. Yeah, great conversation. I love to talk to, and excited to report back. And hopefully, we're following that growth trajectory that you outlined. I'm like, this is lining up. This is lining up. This is right where we're at.
I love it. Well, Amy, great conversation. For Amy, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.